This episode is brought to you by Lumina Growth Lab. At Lumina, we help professional learning and development companies who are struggling with predictable lead flow, breaking out beyond their network, and a sniper approach to attracting the ideal clients so they can have a smoother sales process, finally have scalability, and ultimately take their business to the next level. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because business has fundamentally changed since the pandemic and now the disruption of AI. But with the right strategy and support, they're able to confidently add new channels of lead generation, leading to a packed pipeline that creates sustainable revenue and year-over-year growth for cheaper than ever before because of the use of AI technologies. If that sounds like you or someone you know, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about unlocking your business's potential. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Marketing Matrix. I'm your host, Lisanne Murphy, and today I am joined by the incredible and wonderful, talented Heather MacArthur. Heather, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Guys, I'm really, really excited for this conversation, and I hope you're listening not just on our podcast platforms, but if you have a chance to check out the YouTube, Heather's going to be flashing some pretty sick nails today. She's the one who's giving me nail goals for my life. So I'm really excited for her to break down her genius today and show off those nails. But before we jump into our conversation, I want to take a moment to introduce this powerhouse woman. So Heather MacArthur is an executive coach and development senior consultant for the Executive Advisory, a consulting firm that helps global to small businesses effectively manage the people side of business. She also runs her own business on purpose learning programs to provide individuals and business with practical and meaningful online learning content that goes beyond the surface tips and tricks. She has over 20 years of experience working inside matrix organizations such as the Walt Disney Company, Carnival Corporation, and the National Security Agency, while serving in the U.S. Air Force. She loves helping people intentionally lead and build highly functioning and performing workplaces, as well as carve out meaningful careers. Okay, everyone should be running to the phones ready to hire Heather. I mean, this is awesome. I love your experience as well as what you do. It's really important and powerful. So again, thank you for coming on the Marketing Matrix and sharing what you're doing today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I know just from talking to you before, this could be a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. Okay, so tell me what was one of your earliest memories of where you realized that you wanted to work with the people side of business? Like the people side, the transformational side. Like what was an experience that you had that led to that?
I'll say two quick things. Probably as a kid, I used to always mediate recess and conflicts over Foursquare. So that was in the books, like from day one. I just didn't know I could get paid for it. And then in the military was probably the seed that got planted. I did retail before that, but I talked too much. And so for my job, you're supposed to be on the computer, headphones, transcribing. And I had a great sergeant, and he took me off at the computer and just had me working with a lot of different organizations, depending on that type of thing, to make sure that we weren't duplicating efforts. Because back in the day, we didn't have as many easy ways to track that as we do now. So that kind of started it. And then the job after that, and after that, it all led into learning and development. And it kind of went from
I love that. So are you still in the National Guard or have you?
I did 4 years active and then 4 years inactive. And not now I try to help veterans whenever possible as they're getting transitioning out of the military. I try to pay back a little bit.
That's amazing. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your service. It really is amazing to have a veteran on here. I had a guy that I interviewed recently who his whole business is actually working with people that are coming right out of the military and helping them find jobs and partnering with companies that are wanting to have the contract to be able to bring those military personnel in as their internship. So it's a real thing, and veterans need help with that.
It's very important. I think the transition services offered by the military have gotten better and better, but a lot of times the truth is they've got people working in there that are still in the government system. They don't really understand the corporate and private side of it. So I think it's important.
I love it. Okay, so I also love that you brought up that you were mediating conflicts, recess and conflicts over Foursquare. This is the best. Isn't it funny how there's breadcrumbs along our path? Like
Yeah.
like
No,
when
I was
I
my mom. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was
no, go ahead. I love it. Yeah, when I when people ask me about my entrepreneurial journey, like I remember I used to take my allowance and I would buy candy at the gas station and then I would resell it for more expensive at school to my friends.
You are a hustler. You are a hustler. See, and I would be the one that when they're fighting over who gets the candy, I would take them over to the side. But I like the hustle on
So
it.
funny. I love it. I love it. So what is it that's so passionate for? Like, what are you so passionate about helping people and mediating these conflicts? Like, what is it that it does for you?
I think just the way that I grew up when I started working, and I started working young, it was a source of self-esteem for me. It was a situation where I got lucky. I worked in a lot of places as I was young, getting into the workforce. There were these positive environments that the managers, even in like fast food restaurants, retail, treated me like this intelligent business person. And it just escalated what I thought I could do. And then from there, I've had some tough work situations, but mainly I've had some positive ones. And I saw how much it just made my life better. And so when I see these negative situations and people are spending such large amounts of time of their lives in situations, whether it's because the leadership doesn't have it together or the leadership doesn't know how to navigate it, I'm really passionate about helping make sure that the workplaces are, rewarding for individuals as much as it is profitable for companies.
I love that. Okay, so you mentioned in the bio you have two gigs. You're a consultant for the executive advisory, and then you also have your own on purpose learning platforms. What percentage of your I don't know, you can take the direction you want. Time, focus, revenue, like goes to each. Like, do you have like a goal? Like, you're wanting to ramp up the on purpose learning programs. You like the distribution between both of them. Like, talk to me about the play of having both of those things in your life at this time.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crossroads because on one hand, the online, it really is, it's for organizations, but it's also to make sure that there's accessibility for individuals. The work I do through executive advisory is strictly with organizations and more that large scale work. I don't know if I can divvy it up by time. The on purpose learning is a little bit more in build mode where executive advisory is a little bit more established. So the time kind of goes each month to what's going to help service get those two areas to the next stage, but they're both kind of my babies. I also see them as complementary because it's all my content, and so there's opportunities for that online stuff to support the development that we're doing for clients as well. So they're not always separate. It's a good tool and content piece to have on the side.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, so the on purpose learning programs, you said that's geared more towards individuals, or it's also geared towards
My
organizations.
my efforts are right now towards getting this out towards individuals. I realize that and a lot of times people come to me for coaching. They can't afford coaching or they can't afford to go to a workshop. And so what are those smaller programs that can help them? They're, people who their companies aren't paying for the coaching or development on their side. So how do they have access to that in an affordable way? What I like is there's a double dip on it. It is content that's, in micro learning pieces that can then supplement or offset for an organization. So we might come in and do some live training with people. They don't have the budget to do it for their front line. We've got online training. It's all the same content
Mm,
that is generated by me. And then the other side of it is if they, just as a reminder or to have, we just went through a workshop. Here's a little video that recaps it. So it's a nice, it can repurpose in different ways. But the Openness Learning Programs is really focused on the individuals as well as, especially I've got a career program. And as mentioned before, I do a lot of work with veterans. That's geared towards helping all individuals, but specifically, I'm trying to
yeah.
here's something for those transitioning veterans.
So it's a lot of online course content then, which is great. I mean, that helps you multiply your influence, right?
And I'm trying to what I saw was there's, a lot of organizations, a lot of people will have online and either it's like shopping at Ross and it's like a treasure hunt to try to find the one, which I love shopping at Ross. No dig on that, but it is a bit of a treasure hunt. Well, how do I find it? And it's not always connected to make your outfit, so to speak. So this is connected to where you can go through a complete class and you do have a facilitator who's walking you through and checking in. And sometimes people will sign up for coaching in between those classes as well to help them get the most out of the classes.
That's so cool. So, and just out of curiosity, where are they hosted? Like, do you guys have your own website? Are you hosting them on Kajabi or
Yeah,
Udemy or?
Kajabi. I hosted through Kajabi. I started looking into this during COVID, because who knows what was gonna happen. That's when your mind is going like, "What could we do?" And Kajabi was one of at the time, I was paying for someone to design it through coding from scratch, and it crashed. I actually went through about a good year or 2 of just nightmare,
Wow.
and then I don't know when Kajabi really got heavy on the scene, but I noticed it about 2 years into my journey, and I've watched it. I know some people kind of debate the pricing on it, but I think I'm not trying to do a plug. No one's paying me from Kajabi, but I feel like they've done the most to kind of evolve and continue to think of the person who's a small business owner versus a large organization.
Yeah, it's so great. I love Kajabi. I
Yeah.
also am not like putting a paid plug or anything for
I don't
Kajabi, but it's a powerful hosting platform for memberships for sure. Um, okay, so and what are some of like the typical focuses of the courses in terms of the specific problems that you're solving or that an organization would contract you or your group for?
Yeah, so for the executive advisory, we do a whole spread of things. We'd like to say we really do go into anywhere that there's, human beings at work. And so it's less of the topics. So the topics they range anywhere from, conflict, strategy, communication skills, team building, anything under the gamut. We're doing a lot right now around how do you bring creativity in and different ways of strategic thinking because AI is taking away a lot of that black and white thinking. And then we do a lot of the coaching, but we hit every level, either senior leadership, middle management or frontline. It's more of, I think sometimes people go like, oh, do you go in one lane? Our lane is actually the human interactions in the workplace. And we tend to tailor based on what the organization's goals are, what the, you know, situation is that's going on right now. It's part of what we offer is that thought partnership of this is what you want, but what's really happening and what's going to set you up that this sets you up for better success. And it's not just we come in, have a happy day, and then we're gone and nothing changed.
I love that, right? Because I think so often people transformation programs are like that, where it's just like we take the team off site, do this intensive, and then everything goes back to normal. And it's
Yeah.
like there's like this like magic expectation that things need to change, right? Or that like you'll just like magically implement what's coming. And so it sounds like you guys are like you kind of see the change process through.
Yeah, it depends on where the organization is. Sometimes we are just brought in for that offsite. I think what's helpful is, especially, for me, for example, I've worked inside organizations. So running learning. So you can, you're not there just for the day. You're there for years on, and you see what actually happens. So you can, through those conversations, we try to look for what is actually here. If this is the offsite, you're going to do the offsite. What are you really going to accomplish? And maybe that's what's needed for now, and you're going to do something later. But we can at least give a realistic look at, is this the right fit for what you're trying to do? And if you are going to do it, let's manage your expectations on what it's actually going to deliver for you.
That's really good. So I love how like one of your focuses is to help people have meaningful careers, right? So let's talk about that. Like from your experience, I mean, because you've worked in a variety of capacities and variety of sizes of companies. Like what is it from your breadth of experience that makes a meaningful career?
Of course, it's everybody's unique and different. I wrote a book, Your Career on Purpose, and the tagline is "Stop begging for promotions, start selling your genius." And the reason I say that is I watched a lot of people, and maybe because I was always going to go the consultant track and business track, that I was not necessarily hungry for promotions, and that was my definition of success. So because I had the luxury of sitting back and not being like, "Am I going to get promoted?" I saw people like desperately clamor for this next thing, but they hadn't really thought out what is it that I ultimately want to do. And so as I started coaching with them, a big thing that I ask is, what are you up to in life first and foremost? And I ask the question, you're 105 and you're looking back on your life. You lived a, gorgeous, lovely life. And you're looking back, like, what do you want to say about your life? And it's not, I got this promotion. There's something different, and it's usually intangible, and it has nothing to do with money, and it's usually short. It's I lived it to the fullest. I was a great parent, those kind of things. And then we go back and we go, now what role do you want work to play in that building that for this year or maybe for the next 3 years or 5 years, whatever it might be. And now what kind of things do you want to be doing? All that. So getting them into the driver's seat. I know that gets thrown around a lot, like you need to be in the driver's seat of your career. And I think people think that means I got to be assertive about a raise. And I actually think it means you have to know where you're driving to. And then you know whether to stop the car, get out, turn left, turn right. And I find that the majority of people that I run into, and it's a good number, haven't really put that, have just been kind of on this hamster wheel. They said that the next promotion is the next rung on the ladder. So that's what I'm shooting for versus this is what I actually want.
I love that so much. Like that concept of like it's like you said, like it's not about a benchmark, but it's like are you in the driver's seat? Like do you know where you're going? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's really really powerful, Heather. That's really really good stuff. Do you feel like it? Do you like people like just naturally know deep down like where they're wanting to go, or is there like a discovery process for that?
I think both. I think they do, but it is a discovery process because a lot of us have been kind of conditioned not to be centered in that. And so the exercises I have them do is I'll tell them, date life for a while. Just take a journal and pay attention to what tends to bring an emotion. I share the story often with people of I started doing that because I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I started doing that for myself the last job that I was at before I went into consulting as I'm doing these last years. And I noticed that people were jogging in the middle of the day, and I would get really ticked. Like, who are these trust fund babies that are like running around in the middle of the day and just have all the freedom in the world? And I don't, like I live in LA, they're probably out of work actors and trying to stay in shape for the next role. But for me, I was just angry at it. So I was like, that's an emotion. I need to pay attention to it. And as I started to unpack it, it was like, oh, I need more freedom. I need more control. And to this day, I'm 12 years into consulting and I don't jog in the middle of the day. It had nothing to do with that. It was underneath there's something that I'm craving that I don't have. And same thing, like what do I get excited about when I see a job? I have people look at job descriptions, not to get another job, but just to react to what's exciting about that. Listen to yourself. How quickly do you shoot down the possibility that you even have access to doing what, is exciting for you or interesting?
I love that. Well, and I love like the own personal example of like what I love the most about your example of like getting ticked at people running in the middle of the day is that you're not actually running. Like it wasn't about the running, right? Like it was about a sense of freedom of being able to do what you want in the middle of the day and to be able to look beyond that. And I think, oh, that's like seriously gold. It's so good because I think as a society we turn from our emotions so quickly or we distract so that we don't even feel them in the first place, right? We don't take the time to like really recognize like what's going on inside and like what are the signals that are coming up for us that are sending us messages that will lead us to greater fulfillment and happiness. So I love that example
Yeah,
so
I
much.
I can say, it made me as just as you were saying that, it made me think that, 'cause, technology can get us really I noticed it in myself that I'm not as connected with myself as I used to be sometimes because you spend time kind of on a walk or whatever. But I will say if it's used intelligently, the AI piece of it, to use it to, push you and ask questions, but it's the same thing as well, it's not the same thing as going to therapy, but it's in that spirit of, do you know how to have the skill and the fortitude, regardless of what age AI is asking you to do, or a therapist or a coach, can you sit with yourself and actually spend the time and connect with what thoughts are coming up? And I find that there's the people who aren't used to doing that. It's work, and I don't think people understand how much work it is until you start doing it, and it feels a little draining. So you got to kind of prepare for that.
Yeah, well, and it's I love how you say that it's work. Like a few years ago I went kind of for like a personal walkabout. And one of the things that I did was I went to Europe and I lived like a monk in a monastery for a few weeks. And
What?
so I spent a few weeks like just sitting on a cushion with myself and meditating. And it was excruciatingly painful and really hard work. Like really hard work. Like I remember this morning, it was a 5 a.m. meditation, and I'm sitting on this little mat, and it's a little purple mat, that's about that thick. And I'm sitting there in lotus position, and I was having like a full on, you know, duke 'em out fight with myself on this mat. And I remember opening my eyes briefly, like the sun hadn't even come up yet. And I'm looking down and I'm seeing, I'm on this probably about 3 foot by 3 foot mat. And I was just like, wow, like there is like a full blown war happening on this mat. But that is my only responsibility right now is to just like work through the feelings of frustration and anger and different things that were coming up. But it took, this little war that I had with myself, it took a week of sitting in silence before that battle came up, and one of the things that I realize is that I do distract myself a lot it's hard to sit with yourself. It's really hard. It takes a lot of work. And I'm not saying you don't have to go to a monastery to get to that point, but it does take concerted effort. And I think sometimes people think like meditation is like all calm and peace, which it can be, but it can also be war with yourself. It absolutely can be. And it's a lot of work.
Well, first of all, I'm just in awe because that's not, as you said, like you don't have to do that, but I guarantee you there's just such a Well, I would imagine there's such a journey that you get to go on because you really set yourself up for that. The closest I've gotten probably is, as I mentioned, I wrote the book. I will say it took years to get there because I didn't notice it for a while until finally, my boyfriend actually said, like, it's at Christmas time for 2 weeks, just lock yourself away and write the book. And for the first 2 days, I was like, oh, I'm starting to hear how I talk to myself. I am horrible. No wonder this book is taking years to write. Like, because every time I sit down to do it, I am the most abusive person I've ever met. Like, I'm in an abusive relationship with myself. So I can just imagine the battle level that you did facing it on that kind of just focus. That's amazing. Commendable. Commendable.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, well, tell me about this book. Like, I want to know about that. Let's talk about that for a second.
No, gosh, I did write it a long time ago. It was, coming out of the military, I didn't have family that I could turn to and go like, "Oh, they know how to do get this job," and that type of thing, and I definitely had friends out that helped me along the way, but I had to kind of figure things out, and I realized there's so many people that are struggling with getting work, and they don't have the skill of writing resumes and are just understanding what it means to navigate this, and there's a little bit of method to the madness that over the years and then coaching people that I thought people should know this so they can get busy doing what they really wanna do, not being job finding experts. And then I would just volunteer pro bono. If someone knew of somebody, I would always volunteer my time. And then I realized I don't always have time. So I thought, what if I just had a book that's cost effective? Because if I got out of the military and there was like a $10 book that I could buy that would tell me this stuff, I would have used it. So I wrote it. And then as I was talking to people, some people don't like to read books. So they'd go, I still want to talk to you. And that's where it kind of birthed into the online program. So it all kind of built off of each other. But it's a little package where I try to put it all in one snapshot that if someone was a little bit self that reads and can kind of apply things that it can be a little bit of a quick how-to manual for them.
That's awesome. What a cool resource. I love that. And I love how there's so many stories that you shared today that like it shows that everything is iterative, right? And
Yeah.
like builds on another and like the life that you have today is a result of like the foundationary layers that you've built consciously and unconsciously, right? Like I'm sure that you like even going back to the playground, you didn't necessarily expect that that would like be leading to your consulting future and so it's kind of interesting.
No, I would the iterative part. I had a tough conversation. For me it was a tough conversation that I was stressed about. And after it was done, I was flashing on all these other things that happened in my life that were honestly pretty sometimes traumatic. But I'm like, "Oh, all that stuff prepared me for this." And then I paused and I was, "What's this preparing me for?" In 10 years from now, am I gonna look back and go like, "This thing that I was, that it wasn't easy and that I, in my head would go, I'd love to not have to deal with this." But then I just go, "Hey, maybe I'm in training for something else that's bigger that I need to be ready for." So that's my little way of staying sane, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think it's not just staying sane, but staying grounded in the fact that we don't always see everything. Like I had a friend just last week who I was expressing some frustrations that I had, and she was like, "You are right on time. You're right on time." And I just like I started sobbing because I was like I was so frustrated, and like to have someone look at me and say like everything that's happened is on purpose and you're right on time. And I was just like, which like really goes to like what you were just talking about in terms of like this happened for a reason. It's preparing me for the next thing or like how is this a chapter building for the next, how is this the next hook to my next story. But it's hard when you're in the moment and feeling like, nothing's working, everything is coming crashing down or I'm
But
not going to recover from this or whatever.
And I think, I was just talking to someone yesterday and they even said, like, "Oh, I'm being emotional. And as a woman in the workplace, I should actually calm down these emotions." And I said, I think emotions are a real powerful language. And, you even just sitting there and being able to acknowledge, oh, if I'm frustrated or I'm whatever, to be able to sit with that and go, how is this moving through me? What is it doing for me? What is it telling me? If I'm this angry, what is it telling me versus just calm down and deal with it? And the time that I spent doing lots of therapy, doing a lot of sitting with myself, I think that's the thing. I even say now, I swim in the deep end of all emotions. I think they're all really important. And I don't discount the fact now that me being in touch with them and being willing to actually experience them, I see as one of the superpowers that all human beings get to have. But I don't discard that anymore like I probably did when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, and I think I hope at least that like culturally we're getting better at recognizing and needing to feel emotions. Maybe it's just my algorithm, right? And so like I'm being fed the stuff that I am like, yeah,
Yeah.
emotions are great. But I'm even like seeing ads. I've been seeing some ads recently about talking about how you're actually like a better leader if you're more willing to cry. And even in like a frustrating situation or meeting in the workplace, that like a CEO that can cry is actually a better leader than one that can't. And like they were like, and this is why. And I was like, whoa, like there's an ad about like promoting like the health of emotion in the workplace. And I was like, this is legit. I love it.
Well, you hit on a couple of things. There's a difference between someone who's crying and someone who, oh well, I just didn't need to cry in that moment, versus someone who can't or won't allow themselves to. Gosh, back in the 90s is when I first saw it. I'm dating myself, but it just started to trickle on the scene about neuroscience and how, because now they can, the brain science behind it and legitimizing some of the things that you're talking about. And now, so it's not just your algorithm, though I think you've got a good algorithm if that's the stuff that's sending you, but neuroscience and the brain science, we now have data to back it up. So for those people who are like, prove it to me, look, the science is out there in terms of stress, how it impacts people on the workplace. And now, because we're so good at tracking data, it's also showing the cost on morale, on turnover, on retention, on engagement. So it's no longer just oh, we want you to feel fluffy. It's genuinely, if you care about the bottom line, it's impacting your bottom line. If you care about performance, it's impacting your performance. So I would say I would take it up a notch further and go, it's not just the leader that can cry, it's the leader who understands the value and language of emotions and isn't thrown off by it.
That's so well said. So well said. And yeah, you're right. Cause I mean, it's especially as a leader, it's multifaceted, right? It's like, can you handle your own emotions? Right. And I don't mean handle in terms of, like not like a cowboy wrangling emotions, but like, can you like understand, analyze, sit with, all those things, but also of the people that you work with, above you, laterally to you, below you, like whatever it is, like being able to sit with emotion even outside, inside and outside of you. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm taking a long time to say it, but like it's an important but challenging skill to develop, I think.
And I think, we saw it during COVID where they said, if you were a leader who didn't really navigate interpersonal skills before COVID, you're really going to hurt during COVID because it was so you're on a computer, and like if you can't connect with people in person, it's harder virtually. And now this is my prediction. I don't have all the data and research behind it, but from the people that I'm talking to, this is the tea leaves that I'm seeing happen, is that the more AI comes in, and when people are saying like, "Oh, it's gonna take my job," I think what it's gonna do is it's actually gonna accentuate the human side of what our capacities are. And, that thinking, and that's part of the work that we've been doing is how do you create environments? Because creativity is gonna be huge. AI is gonna handle the stuff that already exists. So creativity, that requires environments where it feels good to play. It feels good to feel emotions. It feels really safe to be able to say crazy ideas and figure out how to make them reality. That is not an environment with somebody who's got repressed and controlled emotions. That's not what you're going to get from your staff.
I love that. Yeah, something that I'm working with myself in my own personal journey is to play more, and not just in terms of like, yes, like go like frolic, but like how can I make work more playful, right? Because like it's when we're playful that we're the most creative. And I know in my life and journey particularly, like I've gotten so freaking serious.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh man, like where's that little mediator on the playground? Like that was fun. Like that person wasn't like business. It was like, ooh, yeah, like, and so I'm trying to play more, get more into my heart and be more intuitive with my work. It's something that I'm personally working on right now.
I think it's so I'm with you. I was just this week I was thinking I know I need to, and I think the topic of joy I could say like in this world, in this climate, and the reality is just in a world where we have access to all the world's problems. I don't think our minds were designed for that. We were designed to know what was happening in the town square, not necessarily every horrific trauma that's happening to everyone around the world. I mean, on one hand, the positive is we're not, ideally we're not ignoring, we're becoming more global citizens and understanding how we impact the world as a whole. But how do we hold on to the capacity for joy? And that is part of what we've got to be able to do to be able to bring our best selves. And how do you, at least for me, this is what I struggle with. How do I get to be joyful? I just witnessed all this horror happening to other people. Who am I to get to go, skip down the hallway, or, go do something fun and playful, or laugh even when I'm seeing people crying and whatever it might be. And I think that's actually really critical, that in the midst of this, that the joy is part of how you're making sure that you're able to bring whatever your gift is to the world. Everybody's got different things and everybody's got different purposes, but I think that is critical.
Yeah, well, and oh yeah, I mean, this could lead into like such a deep, deep conversation, right? I'm seeing right influencers that I follow online that are like, how do I post or promote something when like what's going on in the world, or even just in a few states next to us, like it's realizing almost in a sense, and the thought that came up for me, this is something I haven't really necessarily thought about quite a bit, but I'll just throw it out there because it was a thought that came up for me as you were speaking, is like, I think sometimes we don't recognize the impact that events or as energies have on us, but we also underestimate the impact that like our aura energy can have reflecting back, So like I think that like because of social media and because of like all the world and domestic events that are really quite terrifying going on right now, like we're absorbing that. But like, and so I think sometimes we feel guilty to, like you said, like who am I to skip down the street? But like, what if that's the best work we could do? Like, what if like putting that joy aura back into the world is like exactly what's needed, because we can smile at our neighbor and listen to them and have a good conversation and go play catch with the neighbor kid or like whatever it is, right?
I think it's a beautiful thought. I think it's really important because I think it goes to, I don't know if you can't impact your neighbor. You might be able to, but what I know for sure is, and I saw it myself, honestly, this past year, because I hadn't been taking care of myself probably since COVID. I hadn't been taking care of myself. I've been sucked into a lot of stressful things. And then there's these moments that happen. We had the fires in LA and all these types of things. And I found myself wanting to do certain things and going, physically, I'm not even capable. Emotionally and energy wise, I don't have the capacity of the things that I'd like to do to really make a positive difference. So I think the joy is, I almost want to say it's selfish not to find that joy, because who knows what you might get inspired to do? Who knows what kind of resources? Who knows, like you said, the energy that you're sharing and what that could lead to? But you're for sure not going to know if you get sucked down and, like you said, just get frozen with fear and just, the just exhaustion that's coming from this.
I love that. I'm excited to hear what other people think as they listen as well. This is an important conversation for sure. Okay, so we're at the time of this recording. It's towards the beginning of the year, and I'm curious, like what's on the horizon for you? Like what's present for you with your business in terms of what you're doing with the advisory group, as well as the learning platform. Like what's a big focus for you in 2026?
Yeah, for executive advisory, like I said, we're really focused on. I think what we saw as a firm that in consulting, it's honestly it's a word of mouth. It's not a whole lot of we're consulting firms don't show up, especially smaller boutique ones don't show up on Yelp as much as some other businesses and industries. So we've always had kind of reputation, credibility, and through our relationships, those are always key. But we've started to realize, like, we don't know for sure if all our clients, one, do they always know that we exist? And do they always know what kind of how we exist and how we can actually help them? So sometimes we work with people and they're like, oh my gosh, they're great coaches, but they don't know that we have these other services. So we're really focused on how do we make sure that people can make really good informed decisions and access the help and services that we provide? And then making sure that we're proactive of understanding how AI is impacting the workplace and how to help leaders and HR professionals and executives navigate that, because we've been recently talking about metabolizing change. There's just such a massive amount of change happening at a crazy pace. So how do they not just navigate it, but metabolize it? For on-purpose learning, just continuing to get those programs out there. What's great is I get to be kind of like I get to play with this a little bit because it's mine. And I don't have to run things through 5 different decision makers. I get to kind of have fun with where can this go? How can I play with it? And how is it impacting people? So right now it's experimental year, and I'm just seeing where it can go and how it happens. And I'm probably a big focus is connecting with veteran organizations to see how the career program can support people coming out of the military.
So good. I love it. I love it. So I'm excited for you. Those will be some really, really fun initiatives and things that you're leaning into in 2026. Well, Heather, it has been like seriously an absolute joy having you on the podcast today. Seriously, so much fun, really deep conversation, and one that has been inspiring to me as well. And so I'm excited to hear the listeners get their take on it as well. So thank you so much for coming on to the Marketing Matrix today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So for people that want to follow you, find your learning programs, get in touch with you, understand more about what you do, how can people do so?
Yeah, so they can find the Executive Advisory, the website's theexecutiveadvisory.com. And we're also on LinkedIn. You could find us with the same name as well as Instagram. And we also have YouTube. For On Purpose Learning, find it on onpurposelearningprograms.mykajabi.com, Heather MacArthur.
I love it. Okay, guys, I'm going to put the links to all of that Heather mentioned for both the advisory group and the learning platform in the episode notes. So feel free to grab those there directly and take a look and learn from this powerhouse woman. So Heather, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your heart, your experience, your learnings, your fears. It's just been seriously so fun having you on the podcast today.
Thank you for being such an amazing interviewer. This has been great. Thank you.
Good. I'm so glad. All right, guys. Well, wherever you're listening from, we know that your time is valuable. So for you to choose to spend a few moments with us means the absolute world. So until next time on the Marketing Matrix.